Okay, basically to make my end pieces, I started out with a piece 4 inches by 22.5, and I came in from each end just past the 2x2s, which in this case I think was 2.5 inches, and then I came to the center and I measured in from each end the same way, and these are my 2 holes where my bolts are going through, and these are my 2 holes where my dowels are going through. And what I did was I made up a piece, and this is exactly 2 inches in, so that I could take the piece this way or that way or this way or this way, and it really simplifies things. I don't have to keep everything all exactly the same every time. Then one of these pieces, I went ahead and I made up just put a couple of pieces around the edge of it like this. So I made myself a little jig, and right in here, I don't know if you can see it too well or not, but inside there's a little bronze I should say, bushing. And that is 1/4 inch inside, 5/16 outside, and 3/4 of an inch long. And I got these at Kent, and I will put a item number in the description. And very simple little bushings. And what this does is I can use a 1/4 inch drill and drill piece after piece after piece after piece, and my hole won't get all walled out like it would if I was just using the plywood. So I go ahead and I take my piece, I put it inside here, and I forgot to show the process for drilling this. And this works out really nice because it makes sure I get the right length and everything every time. And then I just put it upside down on the drill press, and I drill 1, 2, 3, 4 holes with a 1/4 inch drill. Once I get that finished, then I know these two need to be 3/4 of an inch. So I put a 3/4 of an inch spade bit in my drill press. And I like using a drill press because drill presses keep things square. With a hand drill, you can get a little off. And when you're going 3/4 of an inch, if you're just a couple degrees off, you will be a 1/16 or more off on the bottom side. So I got my bit here, and I put a couple blocks underneath for a backstop. Then I very carefully drill my holes through. You don't want to go in too fast, because then it'll grab your piece of wood and it'll just jerk it up in the air, and you will not, and it will make the hole really rough. There we are, there's 2 3/4 inch holes. Now you'll notice this spade bit has an end on it. Let me get another one here. I'll be using this 1/2 inch when I do the other holes. It's got a nice end on it, which sits really nicely into those 1/4 inch holes, and self-centers really good. Down you go. So I've got that. Now I just take a file. Where did I put you? Oh. Sorry about that, I didn't have my file handy. So I just take my file and I just clean up the hole. Like so. You feel inside. If it feels nice and smooth, you're good to go. All right, let's go ahead and do this one. This is just a little half round file. Chamfer the edges just a smidgen. You'll see that cleaned it up pretty nice. You double check with your fingers, make sure it's cleaned up nicely in there. There we go. Now, take a piece of sandpaper. Just make sure everything's sanded down pretty good. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to get rid of all the slivers or splinters or whatever you want to call them. Depending on what part of the country you're from. There we are. That part there is done. Now what I do is I have another piece here that I put dowels in, and I will just go ahead and set this on that. Make sure everything fits good. Then I will double check, and I will try to find the closest to perfect that I can find at the top. And this one hits right bang on, so I'll just go ahead and mark that. Alright, that will be the top. And depending on the right side of the module, where the dowels come out, I'll put this one way. The left side of the module that receives the dowels, I'll put it that way. That way everything will line up the same every time, and the top will be flush. Okay, the next step of this is to make up the end by gluing and nailing these together. So I made myself a little jig, 22.5 inches in here. This is 19.5, but I'm cutting my pieces for inside 19 7/16 just to give me a little slop. And the other piece goes on here. And what I do is, this is one of the cross pieces, 22.5. Pre-drill 2 holes from the wires going through. And stick that in. And that piece is 2.5 inches thick. Stick that in and glue this right here. Like so. Then this piece here is 2.5 inches wide by 1.5 inches thick, and it will set in here like so, and you'll notice there's just a little bit of slop, so kind of center it just a little bit. That's so the 2x2 legs will fit right in nicely. And then holding everything tight, start your nails in her. Make sure this, boy, that's a little loose right there, so make sure I hammer that down. Make sure everything's nice and tight there. Then I will put more glue on. Then I will take this piece, put the arrow up, like so. Hold everything nice and tight. And slide her out of the jig carefully. There we go. Make sure everything is nice and tight on the bottom side. Put a couple in here for good measure. On the other side. There we go. Everything's nice and tight. Using that jig that way, what it does, it keeps this end lined up nice and flush there. Keeps everything nice and flush here. So the next step will be to drill the holes for the bolts. Alrighty. Now, you'll notice that I had this piece drilled and I had this piece drilled, but the holes don't go through that 1.5 inch thick piece in the middle. Also, you'll notice that 1/4 inch is kind of tight in here. So, to give us the right amount of clearance, I'm drilling with a 9/32 drill bit. And you'll also notice that with my drill press, I don't have 3 inches of travel. So I got to do it from both sides, which is really nice when the drill press comes in. I don't know if you can see that, but you will notice that the holes are pretty good. But I'm just going to take a hand drill, just make sure they're clean. Because it does go all the way through. Now, check it with a bolt. This will be the end the bolts are coming in from. There, that's pretty nice. And it's not sloppy either. That's a nice fit. Now these springs here are 1 3/4 inch long, and you'll notice that they compress pretty good. And I did some playing around. So in the loose end it'll be 1 3/4. If it's compressed all the way in, it's about 7/8 inch when I measured it. So I figured if I did a hole about 1 1/4 inch deep, that ought to be enough compression on these springs. So I went ahead, I marked up 1 1/4 inch deep here, and you can do this a couple of different ways when you're setting up. What I did was I just went all the way down and set my table so that 1 1/4 inch would be right here. But you can also use this, loosen this set screw off, and adjust it as well, whichever one you want. But yeah, I have enough clearance here to get the drill underneath, and I have the right depth set. Now, this is one thing where pre-drilling these first is really important. If I was to do this step before I did all the way through, as soon as the drill bit got through here and caught this wood, this screw part on the drill bit would catch it and jerk it up, and all of a sudden you'd have a hole 2 inches deep. So, let's fire it up. Do this nice and gently. You want to do this gently so you don't grab a hold of her. And even with 9/32, it centers up pretty good on that hole. There. Now we have a nice hole that's 1 1/4 inch deep, and you can check that by going on your drill bit and right there, and you'd have 1 1/4 inch. The reason I did a 1/2 inch on this was I measured across the widest point on the bolt head, and it was just a little less or than half an inch, so it sinks in there pretty nicely. Let's put my spring on. You'll see on its own it sticks out that far, but then it disappears right out of sight when you put some compression on her. So at that point right there, where she's going to be contacting with the other bolt, that's pretty good pressure. And of course you already saw me with the other end and show you how the bolts work. So there we are. We have an end with the foam on top and the side ends on it like so. Dowels in here. We have an end that will function for the ends of all our modules. And every module will have the same size end on it.